Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're so glad to welcome you as part of our community tonight. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and distributed live stream. By entering this virtual meeting room, you give your consent to be recorded and distributed by Simeon Morrow Public Speaking and Presentations, Vienna Live with Simeon Morrow, and other third parties. If you prefer to not be recorded, please turn off your camera and microphone and/or go to the Facebook Live video feed, the link to which I'll now place in the chat room. For a better experience, please turn off your microphone and set your video to gallery view. This show thrives on participant contributions, and all participants are encouraged to actively participate by asking questions and making comments. To do so, please either write in the chat room, raise your hand, or turn on your microphone and say hi, and I'll be pleased to include your perspective in the conversation. Tonight, our featured guest is Monica Chew, a composer and pianist.
Hi, Simeon. Thanks for having me on, and it's a pleasure to be here on your show.
Hi, Monica. You're welcome. Let's start with some music.
Cute today. Would you like a treat? Would you like something to eat? A piece of liver or a salmon snack? Would you like a scratch right behind your little ear? Would you like to climb into my lap? Oh, cat, you don't have to stalk that bird. You don't have to climb that roof. Oh, cat, I love your wild ways. You have expanded your territory into my heart.
Fantastic. Wow. So again, welcome, Monica. Monica, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to become a professional pianist and composer?
Oh, definitely. Hi, everybody. Well, I am originally from North Carolina, where I grew up, and I studied music and computer science in undergraduate. And then as a treat to myself, I decided to come out west to California and go to the conservatory in San Francisco. And then I ran out of money, and I worked for a little bit at a e-commerce startup programming Java, and I thought it was very boring. So I decided the best thing for me to do would be to go back to school and get my PhD in computer science from UC Berkeley, which I did. And then I worked in industry for about 10 or 12 years. I worked on Gmail spam, and then I went to Mozilla, which makes Firefox, and I built an ad blocker into Firefox. And then I quit my job in 2015 with no real plan, except I wanted to take a little time and play music, and that sort of somehow grew into the freelance pianist career. And then I decided on a whim to start composing in 2017, and that's been actually really great because I can tell that I don't want performance to encompass all of my music life. So I needed something else that could be challenging in different ways, and also less physical. So, as we get older, it's harder to practice for 6 hours a day, and it's pretty athletic. So, there's some pianists who play well into their 80s or even beyond, but it's good to have a way to participate for a lifetime, I think.
So, Monica, is it common at the San Francisco Conservatory of Music that musicians also study computer science, or what's the relation there?
Oh no, so that was in undergrad that I studied computer science. I did a triple major actually in math and computer science and piano performance, and then I came out to San Francisco to study music with for a year to get my master's. And there's no, I think the choices at conservatory have expanded somewhat, but it's still mostly performance based.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about your professional career as a pianist then. As, you just mentioned that you worked as a software designer for 10 years. What about your career as a professional pianist? I mean, where did you said you ran out of money in San Francisco, but tell us a little bit about this and what that means to you when you say career as a professional pianist.
It's actually been an incredibly busy time, which is why I was slightly ungenerous with my prep time with you, Simeon. I apologize for that, but I have 3 performances this week and 4 next week, and I also have a scored deadline today, which I made, and another one in 2 weeks. So I mean, it's a little bit crazy. So my performances this week are mostly a crazy piece by a Black woman composer from Belize, Erilyn Wallen, who now lives in Scotland on a little tiny island with a lighthouse. And she wrote this incredible piece for 4 pianists, 8 hands, called The Girl in My Alphabet. And so that's taken up a lot of time. And we did that Monday, and we're doing it again Saturday. And tomorrow I'm doing a show with a friend, Ari Misic, who's a trumpeter and composer, and he's developed an incredible video show of him playing trumpet, and I'll be playing keyboards. And it's as an opener to the great sort of indie singer Bonnie Prince Billy, if any of you are familiar with palace music from like the 70s. So I'm pretty excited about that. I very rarely play at venues that are not churches or concert halls. So it's that's exciting. And then next week I have a bunch of ensemble stuff coming up. John Adams' Hallelujah Junction for 2 pianos, some of my own music, and a couple events. And yeah, it's just very busy. And then the score deadline today was for my mini opera, which we'll talk about later. And then I'm trying to write a piece for chamber orchestra, which I've never written for, and it's going very badly. So I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to make that. So that's what's going on with me right now. And yeah.
And Monica, tell us about this career as a composer now. You point out that you only started composing in 2017.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that. You mentioned, okay, you didn't, it was a physical thing to play piano. You're getting older now, but tell us about composing. I mean, what does that mean to you now? You're a software designer, as you said before. You're clearly a very creative person. Where does composition fit in there? What is that? What does that mean to your career?
Oh, it's incredibly important. So, when I was a student at music school, I just studied only composers who were dead. Bach, Beethoven, Mozart. I would go up to Prokofiev, all pre-World War II stuff, basically. And that was actually very limited. So it's kind of crazy if you compare the programming schedules of sort of elite classical institutions today, like the New York Metropolitan Opera, and you compare that to like, oh, well, what is the Cannes Film Festival showing? Only new works. It's only in music where we have this idea that the pantheon of the great German Austrian composers from, the 18th century or 19th century are the best that will ever be, and we always have to make room for them. And so, and that's we'll talk about this later on. I think it's reflects in who listens to classical music and how we enjoy it or don't enjoy it. But I wanted to write music because it's really fun to create things, and I really wanted a chance to just to make something and share it with friends to play with, and have more personal stories to tell, like that song about our cat, who was a feral cat who moved in basically during COVID. She's downstairs right now sleeping in her cat tree. That's actually really been very satisfying in a way that I don't know, learning Chopin etudes is not. So
And Monica,
that's why.
as you mentioned, we'll get into that and the purpose of classical music in a moment. But just as a rejoinder, you said that, for instance, at the Cannes Film Festival, they're only showing new works. Many, how do I say, elite classical musicians today, maybe they wouldn't consider the music that they just heard that you wrote very new. They think of new
No, it's
music as
not.
something very abstract, not as something that's fun. So how do you then, how do you tell them, okay, well, no, yeah, I compose this for fun for my friends, it's new music, when they would say, well, we've already heard that, we've heard, you know, those scales, those
Oh,
chords
exactly. I
before.
mean, I mean, not all of my music is super tonal, although I think probably everything that I picked today is. You know, it's just like, you know, when James Joyce came out with Ulysses, that was pretty radical and new, and people objected, just like when Schoenberg, you know, serialism happened. Everyone hated it at first. You know, sometimes these new techniques and languages get absorbed into common parlance, and sometimes they don't, and that's fine. And it's always, you know, I wouldn't say that I'm going to only write fun tonal music for the rest of my life, but it is important for me to be able to express a narrative, and whether that's tonal or serial or you know, something completely wacky, like that's not important to me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So I mean, we wouldn't say that, you know, a new film that used the same language that people used in the 60s was not worth experiencing. Like, people still make, you know, Hitchcock remakes, and sometimes they're quite faithful, but still there's something about it that makes you think.
Sure.
And so I think there's room for all sorts of expression in music.
Okay, so let's hear your next piece. And then, as you mentioned before, but we'll keep in mind that classical music is very particular about what is new, about what is old. They have their own values. Let's take a listen now to Zoom Gloom.
Hi, everybody. How are you guys tonight? Everybody good? Okay, we've got more people coming on, so this may take a couple minutes.
Can everyone please mute themselves?
Unmute. Who can unmute? Let's do. All right, Grace. Can you see what I'm doing on the screen? What's that, Grace?
Yeah, I can see that you have the screen pulled up.
Good stuff.
Whoever's typing, can you
Mute your phone, please.
I can only see the top of your head.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry, you go.
No, you go ahead. I have a hard stop at 3.
I've got a hard stop in 30 minutes.
Can you see my presentation? Can you make me the presenter?
This is not. My computer is acting weird.
Are you running Linux? You're breaking up. Can you repeat that?
I see myself, but I don't see a video.
There's 18 people in this meeting, and Diana,
We can see.
My computer is acting weird.
The moment I
Less backlighting is better.
Can you see what? Can you
So
see
I don't
what's
know
on
what's
the screen?
wrong.
Probably
Yeah.
should mute yourself before you do that.
What's that great?
Yeah, I can see.
There you are. Now you're back.
Your friend, I don't know if anyone said anything I
Good
said.
stuff.
Sorry, I can't hear you. Are you there? Can everyone hear me?
You're
My
done.
computer is
I
acting
can only
weird.
see
Oh, okay,
the top
sorry.
of your head.
No, sorry.
You
I
go
see
ahead.
myself, but I don't
There's
see a
18
video.
people
Still can't
in
find
this
my
meeting.
video to turn it
About
on.
half of us have video, and you're gonna have to just scroll through.
Whoever's typing, are you still wearing your
Less
pajamas?
backlighting
I
is
have a hard
better.
stop at
I've
3.
got a hard
So I
stop.
don't know
Can you
what's
see what I'm
wrong.
doing on
Probably
screen?
should mute yourself before you do that. Presenter?
What's that great?
This is not. My computer is acting weird.
You're breaking up. Can you repeat that?
Can we circle back to what we were talking about earlier?
Okay, have a great
Bye.
day. All right. Thank you.
All right,
Audrey.
take care.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.
Fantastic. So
Thank
tell
you.
us a little bit about, Monica, this situation. You started composition in 2017, the 2019, or was it, 2020 then? This pandemic happens. Tell us about how that affected you, how the pandemic affected musicians. What was it like going through that
Well,
period?
that could easily take the whole rest of the day, but I'll just limit it to that was really awful. I mean, anybody who works in the arts or anything that has to do with events experienced, we'll call it a lot of unrequited work. And so that project, Zoom Gloom, is actually part of an artist relief fund that my composition mentor started to help performing artists who lost gigs, which was basically everybody. So in that instance, the composers donated their time, and the performers got a small fee to basically video record premieres, and it was a way to like bring new music to people, give performers something to do, which is actually really important. It's so important to feel like you're doing good work. And of course, I think I wrote that in fall of 2021 or spring or something like that. And by that time I was already so sick of Zoom meetings. So I just had this idea that I would write a piece about every Zoom meeting that everyone's ever attended. And it was both really funny and anxiety inducing. So Audrey, this was great. So Audrey is a cellist, and she lives in Chicago. So we never met in person, but we live streamed it together, and I played my soundboard live while she was playing. And it was my first experience doing I guess electronic tracks, and it was really fun. So yeah, exactly. Yeah, who
Professor
isn't zoomed
Lino
out by now?
Rivera writes there, that piece just captured our collective experience zooming. I am zoomed out already. So Monica, then you said that this was kind of a social project, kind of in the more or less like writing a story about your cat that you can share with your friends. This is
Right.
something that is this is social music, really chamber music. So tell us about where you think that's going in the future. Is it going to be? Has that been a watershed moment? The pandemic. Will now music be taking place more online, doing digital things like we're doing now, or is it going back to then that in-person thing? Are we going to stop doing the Zoom altogether?
Well, I have noticed personally a huge uptick in in-person events, and still a lot of cancellations and personnel changes. We just had one this week on the 8 hands piece that I was telling you about. One of our pianists got terribly sick, and the person that we invited to page turn actually ended up reading her part during the performance. And it's just like every week or every day is a decision. Well, do I do this or that? And neither of them are ideal. I'm so glad that people like you are still running these online community events, so that there's a lot of people out there with compromised immune function, or just, I think COVID brought out a lot of people's anxiety and really sharpened it. And it's really important to have human contact. So, and I think now, especially with the very obvious effects of climate change that are happening, more and more artists are recognizing that the lifestyle where you fly twice a week to give concerts in different places is not really sustainable. And so that actually brings us to the next piece that I wrote, string quartet, where none of the members were ever in the same room, and we used a platform called StreamYard to actually rehearse and record. So they played together over StreamYard, which at the time was slightly better than Zoom for listening to. Basically, Zoom's original sound was inferior to StreamYard, and they also recorded their audio locally. And so you'll hear the result of that in the next piece, which I wrote to account for players who couldn't. I mean, the ensemble writing is such that you don't have to be exactly in time with the person who's leading, because it's impossible.
Okay, and let's say have a listen now. This is delayed send. Okay. Wow. Intense. So, Monica, tell us about this. Is my impression right that everything is pretty much calm and nice until we get pictures of the humans, and then suddenly things get a little bit granular, get a little bit.
Actually, well, that was only half the piece, so it actually gets a little more intense after that. But I did want it to start with a meditative feel. Oh, and the reason I made that video is the video, the performers came out looking just like we are now, and I thought that was very boring. So, also the violist, everyone was supposed to record video locally as well, and there's always so many problems doing these remote projects. Her video failed, and I didn't want to have like mismatched, resolutions and all that stuff for a kind of sad outcome. So that was my first time doing a big video project, and I just found a bunch of stock footage on the various sites, and it was actually really fun. I can't say that the imagery of the people versus the nature actually had a huge symbolism, but it was more of a free association thing, going through this huge database and just seeing what resonated with me at the time I was listening to the track.
Okay.
So,
now I'd like to bring in Professor Lino Rivera of St. Mary's College of California. Hi, Lino. Nice to see you.
Hello, and hello, Monica.
Hi, Lino.
Okay. First of all, are you in San Francisco? I'm here in the East Bay. Where are
Oh,
you?
wonderful. I'm in Oakland.
Oh, you're in Oakland. Well, okay. So I'm here in Moraga. Anyway.
Fantastic. I hope it's not too hot over there.
No, it's fine now. Now, my question to you is that piece, the one that we just heard, was that meant to be performed with the view of with a video of nature?
No, I mean, that was purely a save, because this was intended for an online event, and I thought that the video of the really low resolution Zoom image was not very fun to look at for 12 minutes, which is what the audio ended up turning out to be.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, I was just wondering, was the video copyrighted, or is
no,
it?
It's all Creative Commons.
Okay.
And the site that I used for that is pexels.com, and I'll put it in the chat if you're interested in.
Yeah. The reason why it fascinates me is also that the San Francisco Symphony is now having this series of concerts wherein they have the film music, and they show in the background the film. I'm sure you're aware of that.
Yes.
And it's become very, very popular among the audience. Rather than just seeing the musicians perform on stage, they're seeing a film in the background while the musicians are playing live.
It's fascinating how these things co-evolve. I mean, originally a lot of music was, even opera and things like that, where a lot of it was background music, and people would chat during salons, and maybe they would listen to the aria if it was really good. and go on.
Yeah. And I also want to bring up here the pianist Hunter Nowak. I don't know if you have heard of him. He is from Oregon.
Oh, the outdoor pianist guy?
Yes, the one that is in the landscape.
Yeah.
And I actually, this last month, I was in Oregon, and I attended one of his concerts there in Coos Bay. And you're walking around with a headphone, and it's really sophisticated headphone, as if you're in a concert hall, and he's playing there live out there, and you're looking at nature. You're looking at the Pacific Ocean, at the trees and the forests, at the rock formations. And it's just a different kind of an experience that the audience is having. And it just reminded me, when I was looking at your delayed send piece, oh, I'm looking at nature right here, and at the same time, I'm hearing the music. So concert events are becoming, we're evolving, things are changing.
To be honest, it's very hard for live music events to compete with things like movies or television shows. unless, I mean, so many people are attuned to visual elements that, you know, it's very difficult to compete with the production value of dedicated video teams. So it's a mixed bag. Like, I personally am not really a visual person, even though I made this video. Like, I often don't look at the performer even if I'm in a live concert, because it's sometimes, you know, performers, they have all sorts of tics and grimaces and weird can
Mannerisms.
seem pretentious. So I often, you know, I'm so bad. Sometimes I just take my score and I listen, or I just look at the floor. It's fun to look at other audience members to see what they think. But I'm very much not a person who prioritizes video events like that.
Okay. So let's, this is a good place where we can move into our roundtable with Lino if he wants to participate. So Monica, Dr. Davis has a question. Sorry. Hi, Dr. Davis.
Hello.
Let me see can you unmute? We'll keep trying. Almost there. Keep trying to unmute. Nope. We'll keep trying then.
Like we're listening to my piece
there
again.
You go. Can you hear me?
You can hear you
Good.
now.
Sorry about that, but it wouldn't work. I just wanted to make a quick remark what Professor Rivera said. People, when they're sitting in a concert hall, I liked your description when you went up in Oregon, but most people sitting in a concert hall, they're listening to some music, and usually classical music when I go, and different pictures go through your head, whether it be at a river or at the ocean or in the forest. And just to reinforce your comments, which I thought were quite good. Thank you. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Davis. And of course, thank you very much for joining the roundtable. Let's go into this. And of course, you're welcome to make further comments. So Monica, we, in the description of your show, of course, we talked about the Gewandhaus Orchestra of Leipzig and their motto in Latin, res severa, verum gaudium. So it's the serious stuff that gives us big pleasure. And that's exactly that idea, right? Of sitting in this concert hall, concentrating, finding something, you know, in a romantic way that's more than what you just see there, or enjoying the, you know, that it's this magnificent hall and listening to this music. And then we have, on the other hand, you know, your cat video, for example, of where we're looking at the actor and the singer actor, and he's talking about the cat, and it's very funny, and there's you know, everything's very attractive. Or your as Lino was mentioning, or Dr. Davis, those kind of mental excursions, or going through kind of physically changing your landscape. What is it? Your mission as a musician is to illuminate and entertain. What is classical music then, Monica?
Well, to be honest, when I wrote that tagline for my website, I was mostly thinking about myself. I love learning, and you know, it's like what I was saying earlier about musicians need to make music just as deeply as people need to listen to music, and you know, people like me need to create whatever it is. So it's really three equally important parts of the triangle here, like the composer, who's not really separate from the performer. Sometimes I find performer feedback completely invaluable, and I love it when somebody wants to collaborate on making a piece better, or like I'm doing with my mini opera, collaborating with a librettist has been really wonderful. And then the performer is so important because the music is nothing without the interpretation. And the audience, who, I mean, of course, the performer and the composer hopefully are part of the audience, but it's I don't want the relationship to be so one-sided as it can feel sometimes, like when you're going to like one of the concerts that's billed as like a great masters series, where, you know, you listen to Beethoven's Fifth, and you know, these composers are sort of like venerated as gods almost, and that's especially true in conservatory. I just remember so many lessons where my teachers would say, "Well, that doesn't really reflect the performance practice of the time. You know, this score says this. Why are you doing it this other way?" And you know, to be honest, we shouldn't be doing things for the approbation of people who are no longer with us. I mean, it's great if, you know, Beethoven or Bach would have approved of my interpretation of whatever, but I don't think it's the most important thing, or it's not the most important thing to me, rather.
Okay.
So I find it very strange, especially in classical piano, that so much of the study is dedicated to performing accurately and authentically, and not creatively. Like, I feel like in the past 100 years or so, especially pianists have been discouraged from deviating. Like, it used to be very normal to write your own cadenzas or improvise, and that's become less and less common. Like, I was just speaking to my old conservatory teacher from 25 years ago, and I went to one of his studio classes, and his student played the Mozart A minor rondo, and she played it very beautifully. And I said, "Well, you know, this theme comes back so many times. Why don't you just play whatever you want?" And Paul, my teacher, said, "Oh, she can't do that. It's Mozart. Too many people know it." And I'm like, exactly. How are we supposed to grow another Mozart if we say you must be true to the score? Like, what does that even mean? And especially since I've produced some scores now, I know very well that my scores don't capture everything. You know, unless you're a Webern or a Takemitsu, who we're going to see soon. It's part of the making music come alive is to find what you respond to in the score and then do it, whether or not it's marked.
Okay,
that's my
and
opinion.
Maybe can Dr. Davis, if you want to jump in, and then we'll have Professor Rivera. Dr. Davis, I remember you telling me that you saw Ernest Anserme conducting in Switzerland, and I imagine going to such concerts like that, it is what Monica is alluding to, this idea of a revelation where you have a wise person going there to show you something, so you better be quiet. That person has been has been through it all. He was friends with Stravinsky and all that. What's your take on this?
I think her comments were extremely good, and they tell us what people are really thinking about. Not many people in the past years gave it a lot of thought, what goes through your mind. And when I was sitting in the balcony, I was a student at the time, so I believe I was in the very last row, way up on top. And 2 seats away from me was this lady who was probably 8.9% pregnant and ready to give birth. I thought I was going to have to do it during the concert, which would have been a first. But in any case, the way the mind works, and what in past times, years and years ago, and the way it's working today, just listening to Monica talk and to Professor Rivera talk, it tells me that things are changing. And I personally believe they're changing in a good way, and we should keep going that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Professor Rivera?
Yes, I put it in the chat that I could not agree more with you, Monica. I think it was in 2020 when I was doing this project with Robert Greenberg, and we were lecturing about the Mozart sonatas, and I had to perform the Mozart sonata in C minor, and I said, you know, there are repeats right here. Is it possible for me? Would you please allow me? And if it's not going to offend you, if I could just change a little bit, especially on the fermati, if I could just improvise a little bit of cadenza, short cadenzas, I can change some notes during the repeat so that it's not an exact repeat. And Robert Greenberg told me, that's what the man would have done himself.
Exactly.
Exactly. And so, you
Yeah.
know, it to be there within, we are so true and so dedicated to the text, to the notes. I think it's very counter creative. And I think we should be in the minds and in the spirit of these composers. And I tell all my students, all of these great composers, with no exception, they're all jazzers in a way. They will never, ever perform their pieces exactly the same way.
Okay, fantastic. Let's have a listen now to Monica performing. This is Takamitsu, so we will get to hear Monica herself playing another composer. Wow, fantastic. So Monica, now we have to run, and you're getting some applause from everybody. So Monica, I wanted to quickly ask you, because we're running out of time, tell us about now this bake-off that we're going to see in a second. This is your newest opera that's coming out, and it's an opera about the COVID time. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's about a baker named Lily who loses her sense of smell and taste due to COVID, and she's scheduled to compete in a bake-off against her arch nemesis Bobby. And she's worried she's not going to recover in time to compete. And I think this message really resonates. I mean, it certainly resonates with me, like who just lost a collaborator this week due to illness, like had to scramble to fill in. And the first line of the opera is, you know, it's 13 days with no sense, with no smell or taste. The competition is tomorrow. The idiot's going to win. You know, basically, like immediately you sort of know what she's going through, and you know, it's a farce. I mean, it's a ridiculous piece because I wanted to make it funny and fun, and you know, I got a lot of feedback from singers that they really like singing tunes, and they really like singers are so funny. They're not like any other instrumentalists. If you give them something like Takemitsu to sing, they're gonna have a really hard time. So my goal for this, frankly, was just to have something that was fun and short and that I could submit to production companies with zero budget, because you can put it together with a pianist and 3 singers. So that was my goal, and just to have something that reflected what all of us feel.
Okay, and here it is right here.
Yeah, Lino, if you're in town, October 7th, I'd love to meet you.
But it says here we can stream it also?
Yes, you can stream it, absolutely.
Fantastic.
It's a very inconvenient time for those of you in Europe. Sorry about that.
And the name of the opera is Story and Song?
Is the name of the opera is the COVID Bake Off, and I'm sharing the program with other people. So my portion is 20 minutes, and you'll hear just 2 minutes of it. The part where her arch nemesis Bobby calls her on the phone and brags about how he's going to destroy her.
Okay, let's take a look right now.
It takes a true baker to stand in the heat. You need the right batter if you're gonna compete. I am body free, not you but me. My name will prepare for eternity. I can fold a loose moose in the shape of a goose. I can hand paint a steer on the top ready tier. I can crumb coat a sponge with a swift leaps and lunch. I am body free, not you but me. My name will prevail for eternity. I can ice a ghetto with the flick of my toe. I can make a stiff peak that'll make your knees weak. I can crimp a large crust in the shape of a bus. I am Bobby free, not you but me. My name will prevail for eternity. Do you know who I am? I'm Bobby free, the best in baking history. I can fold a loose moose in the shape of a goose. I can hand me the steer on the top I need you. I can chop with a sponge with a stick and lunch. I can ice a ghetto with the flick of my toe. I can make a stiff big that shall make your knees squeak. I can crib a large crust in the shape of a bus. Bobby the baker. Bobby. Bobby was the cake.
Wow. And I see there the woman turning pages is just laughing as much as we are. Fantastic. So Monica, tell us now, what do you wish classical music of today and tomorrow? What do you wish the audiences? What do you wish all of us?
I wish for audiences to become very bossy and tell programming directors directly what they like and what works and what doesn't work for them. I really want to know, do people really want to hear the Emperor Concerto 10 times a year? And I want to know if I want audiences to open their ears and just experience lots of new music, because I think a lot of people develop, their favorite in their 20s or 30s, and it's hard for people to increase their repertoire, like as time goes by and their lives become full. And it's just, I don't want to see stagnation in programming or in audiences or performers or composers. So I want to just encourage as much growth and fermentation as possible in whatever ways that work.
Fantastic. Let's see how we can stay in touch with Monica. Here's her website, monicachew.com. So Monica, people can reach out to you there by clicking on
Yes,
contact?
there's a contact form, and my email's on it. So I think
Fantastic.
I'll be re-releasing my album on Bandcamp at some point. So the Takamitsu is actually part of an album that I released in 2017. And it's not a program that I would do today because it only has dead composers on it, but it's still a pretty good program. So I released it on CD Baby, and I'd like to re-release it on a platform that lets you like download it more easily than CD Baby. So.
And this is the album Tender and Strange, that's the title?
Yes, it's from 2017. So
fantastic.
If you sign up for my email list, you'll get a notification when that happens.
Fantastic. And will you be putting up, I put in our chat room the Bake Off opera, how people can attend it. Will that also be on the website for other people who don't have that?
Yes, it will.
Okay. Perfect.
Thank you for the nudge. I need to
You're
update my
welcome.
website.
So let me put that again in the chat room. This is monicachew.com. Reach out to Monica and stay in touch and learn about where she's performing next, what she's performing next, and what compositions she's premiering. So fantastic. Thank you so very much to Monica Chew.
Thank you so much for having me on, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Jerry and Lino and Carlos.
So let's take a look at what's coming up next week. We have Música Española, Switzerland.
Ooh.
Imagine you are a young, internationally renowned Spanish pianist traveling the world to play sold-out concerts before eager publics. Then, one day after a concert, you decide to settle down and promote Spanish music, its composers and musicians, in the unlikeliest part of Western Europe. That's the story of pianist Maria Luisa Cantos, and though today it's hard to imagine the economic powerhouse as less than cosmopolitan, when Maria Luisa arrived there more than 4 decades ago, she became Switzerland's famous but lonely representative of Spanish music and culture. Nevertheless, her adoptive homeland was curious about this exotic place called Spain. Oh, keep in mind that Spain and Portugal were omitted from the European political map for much of the 20th century. And Switzerland encouraged her to create a unique organization called Música Española Switzerland to promote Spanish music in Switzerland. Música Española Switzerland has been at work for nearly 45 years now, and Maria Luisa has been awarded the Kingdom of Spain's highest civilian honor, Lazo de Dama de Isabel la Católica, for her tireless efforts. Both Maria Luisa and her deputy, Hispano-Swiss pianist Amri Alhambra, join us for an exclusive look at a cultural organization that defies national boundaries, and shows the power of classical music diplomacy at home and abroad. That is next week, next Wednesday, Música Española, Switzerland. And as always, all information about upcoming shows may be found at www.simeonmorrow.com. Thank you so very much again to Monica Chew. Thank you to Lino Rivera, Dr. Jerry Davis. Thanks very much to Agnieszka and Benoit Rivolet for the support of this show. Most of all, thanks to you, our participants, who make it all worthwhile. From New London, New Hampshire, in the Bay Area, California, goodbye, and see you next Wednesday.